Hi there, I'm Andrea Provaglio, and first of all, it's a pleasure to be here at Experience Agile 2020, so thanks a lot for having me. Now, let me tell you a little bit about what I do. I work as an enterprise agility coach, which means that the way I describe myself is I like to help organizations move into the 21st century with business agility and agile leadership and other things. So the reason why I'm telling you this is because it gives you a little bit more of context about the things that I'm going to tell you about in this talk. So the title of this talk is Lean is from Mars and Agile is from Venus. And it's clearly a reference to a kind of famous book about the relationship between men and women and the way they communicate with each other. So the metaphor is they come from two different planets and therefore they speak slightly different languages, they have slightly different mindsets, so there's a lot of misunderstanding sometimes. And so just understanding each other better is a very good way to get along well together. So in this talk, I'm not going to compare lean versus agile or vice versa. Actually, I'd like to share with you some of the learnings and the insights that I've got working with some of my clients and one in specific, but I'll tell you more about that in a second. So you can think of Planet Lean and Planet Agile as very similar from a certain point of view. Both approaches are intended to deliver value, to promote collaboration, to constantly improve, to experiment, and so on and so on and so on. And both approaches, first of all, they put people at the center. The voice of the customer, for instance, in Lean is paramount, and delivering value to our customers is also paramount in Agile. There's one difference though. Lean was born primarily for industrial production, whereas Agile comes from information technology, from software, which means that it's much more geared towards cognitive work. So there are a lot of similarities, but also some fundamental differences. And some of these differences can be a source of misunderstanding sometimes. So then again, I want to tell you about what I've learned from one specific client that I worked with, and this client is an oil and gas company, an international, multinational oil and gas company. So they do something very physical, stuff that has mass, weight, and takes space, and so on and so on and so on. But this company, they gave me a lot of food for thought because they are well versed in lean. But also they have a kind of enlightened in the way they approach Agile as a way to promote their business agility, which means their ability to adapt to very volatile markets. So I don't want you to think that this talk applies only if you work in oil and gas, because I'd like to remind you that the way I like to put it is we are all children of the Industrial Revolution, meaning that all of us have been breathing the Industrial Revolution air for so long now. It's been around for 1.5 centuries that it had a very strong influence on many, many aspects of our society and the way we run companies as well. So for instance, our educational systems, you could see from a certain point of view as factories for mass producing educated people. You could still see that even in organizations that are not factories, are not industrial organizations, we still call people human resources, which is an echo of the Industrial Revolution. And the way we deal with finance and the way we measure things and the way we build entire organizations is strongly influenced by the Industrial Revolution. So then again, I hope you will find something useful for you in this talk, even though you are not in the oil and gas business. The things I'd like to talk about briefly are performance management, value creation, and leadership culture. So I need to go a bit fast on the next few slides. I just want to point out that this company, this client, is extremely skilled in lean at several levels. They've been doing this for a long time. And you can read the slide by yourself about what they do, but I'll just mention this. Um, this company spends 1 week per month involving 15 teams just on continuous improvement, Kaizen, which means they invest 3,000 and even more man hours per month just to get better and better and better and better. So they're very, very committed to this, and they've been doing this for a long time. Now, a colleague of mine and me have been working with this company for 18 months, and because they want to become more agile. They master lean and they want to become more agile. And actually they want to do the two things together. So we've been running agile projects and developing agile products in a number of different situations, not only IT, but also telecommunication processes, projects. We've been working with the guys who develop entire systems, which they call plants and process packages, very complex things, so a number of different things. And we just started with doing the basic things that we do in Agile. We recommended that they created as stable as possible teams, so people would not be distracted by working on multiple projects at the same time. They could stay focused. We implemented feedback loops with the business and with the users and with the technical people. So we had retrospectives and reviews and daily meetings and so on and so on and so on. We gave more autonomy to the teams, meaning that we reduced their dependencies in terms of they became more autonomous and cross-functional in the way they created whatever they had to create. They had to ask for less permissions to management to do certain things, and just by doing this, we noticed a 3 times faster execution time for their projects, so not bad. But then we started working on the culture. So the culture in my work is something that you can notice from what we call the artifacts. So the artifacts are anything that is visible in an organization, anything that is observable, that we tend to notice as produced by an underlying culture, which we are trying to understand. So of course we don't judge neither the culture or the artifacts, but we are used to observing and noticing them. So what you see in the pictures here are, for instance, a workstation which is being streamlined using this 5S lean technique. You also see that they streamline their workspaces, because what you see on the right-hand picture is a cart positioned exactly in the spot reserved for that specific cart. And then just for practice and also for developing more and more this mindset, they also apply these things to apparently trivial things like sticky notes have their own place depending on their color, or sometimes they go overboard maybe, and what you see on the screen is a sign saying this is the space for the IT people. And I'm pretty sure that people can find their space anyway, but still that's what they like to do. So this other picture is a picture of a desk which has on the desk a picture of what the desk should look like to make it efficient. Now, and I took this as a symbol of where lean comes from, which is industrial production, and the cognitive work, which is more the arena of Agile, can get confused. Because if you think about it, of course, I mean, I like a very clean and Zen-like desk. My desk at home is not very much different, because it helps me think better. But that's the point. It helps me think better. Because the real work in this case is not something that you see because people are using screwdrivers as in the previous picture, but the real work is what happens in the head of the person who is trying to come up with a solution, solve a problem or whatever, and then this cognitive work is transferred into the computer just because we have a keyboard and a mouse. But the keyboard and the mouse are just tools, and the work you don't actually see because it happens here and it happens inside the computer. So this confusion between what we do in an industrial world where things are observable and what we do with cognitive work You can see very well, for instance, when you start using KPIs for measuring cognitive work. Now, if you think about it, a key performance indicator is what we use to measure a process, and by definition, what you measure must be visible and quantifiable if you want to measure it. Cognitive work is neither visible nor quantifiable. You can see the outcome of that, but not the actual work done. Because people go after intent, they go after solutions, they go after inspirations, they learn by mistakes, they learn by trying, and learning is also a value. So that's not so easy to measure as it is, for instance, to measure how many gas regulators we have produced in the last week. And in fact, there are certain techniques or certain approaches like objectives and key results, OKRs, which work much better in terms of aligning intent with work done, measurable work done. So this is something that we're noticing in this company. They try to measure things that are not so straightforward to measure. And this leads to another behavior, which is the tendency to favor output over outcome. Now, output is work done, and the outcome is the value that you have generated by doing that work. And usually this outcome is because you're trying to fulfill some people's needs. So I can give you an instance of this. The guys I worked with, the guys developing entire systems, the plant and process packages, they have a very well-defined process for putting together the documentation required to start putting together a new system. And somebody decided that 1 week is the right time they should take to put together this documentation, regardless of the complexity of the system, which sometimes can be simpler or sometimes much more complicated. So as a result, and not only that, but people are also measured on whether or not they fall within this 1 week window to complete this documentation. And so guess what? If people are measured on the time it takes for them to complete something, they go after the time, not after the quality and completeness of the documentation. So that's an example of confusing work done with the actual value that you want to deliver. And in this case, the actual value is the quality and the completeness of the documentation required to start building this plant. We also had to make some adjustment to the leadership, because in Lean, it's very frequent that the leader is also the expert, meaning that if you have been working in a certain field for some time and you have become very, very good at something, at some point you might be promoted to a position where you can help other people to become good at what you were good at doing. So you can teach these people, you can support these people, you can help them if they have problems. So you are the expert, which is perfectly aligned with this idea that if you work in a complicated environment, you need experts to deal with this complication. Also, management style is frequently just in time, which means just as you have a production line, for instance, that is running smoothly, and you don't do anything special if the line is running smoothly. But if you have a problem, you stop the line and you call for help. Now, in that case, the manager may intervene and help you. But the same approach to management is also for things that are not a production line. That's another confusion. So I've seen a style of management where the leader is not there to create the right environment, but is there to fix problems when there are problems. But in Agile was there because people had to find a way to work better in highly volatile and uncertain environments. Therefore, being able to work safely in uncertainty is a must. And the role of the leader in that case is the role of someone who creates the condition for people to work safely in uncertainty. Not only physically safe, but also psychologically safe. So that they can be effective in reaching their goal, which means they reach the right outcome, but also they are efficient in doing their work, which means they are efficient. So the thing we are doing now with this client basically is introducing performance management practices that are better suited for people doing cognitive work. So we don't measure people on the amount of work they've done, but we consider which goal we want to reach, and we're trying to align the goal with the activity that people do in the field. Another thing that we are doing is we are improving the product ownership skills, because a product owner in Scrum, a product owner is a Scrum term. In Scrum, the product owner is first of all the master of the return on investment. So the product owner is primarily responsible for maximizing value with the minimum effort possible, which is a totally different concept from managing work to do. So it's not about output, work done, but it's about outcome, value delivered. And the other thing we're doing with them is to create a leadership culture that is suited for highly adaptive organizations, so what we call business agility. I wanted to use this example from this client to kind of distill a few ideas that maybe you can take with you and you can try to translate into your own working environment. So the first one is your organization and your company and your business, you don't become agile just because you follow some rules or you follow some observances, like you do daily meetings. That's not making you agile. What makes you agile is the deeper understanding of the right kind of culture and needs and mindset that generated the practices that you see. The other thing you want to remember is that you might be working with an industrial mindset much more than you think, because we have just inherited this kind of mindset from, then again, decades and decades and decades of an industrialized culture. Problem is, in the 21st century, of course, we still need industrialization for certain kind of businesses, like this client doing oil and gas. Sure, they do need lean, and they need to understand what industrializing means. At the same time, the world now is moving so fast and so unpredictably that they also need to be extremely adaptive, which means that this industrial mindset might not be serving you well if you think more deeply about it. And the other thing is, if you want your organization to be efficient and effective in a highly complex world, the leadership, the style of leadership plays a critical role in creating the right kind of safety in which you can operate. So I'm done, I'm finished. I'd like to thank you for your time and for your attention. Then again, I am Andrea Provaglio. If you want to keep in touch, please do follow me on LinkedIn and Twitter, which is my favorite social networks. And of course, there's also my website. And then again, thanks a lot.